Hello and welcome back to Gript Media with myself, John McGurk, and my colleague Sarah Ryan for this special election edition of The Week That Really Was on Gript Media. We are upping our output with a general election campaign on because our politicians have upped their output and are littering the country with posters, knocking on doors, generally making a disturbance of themselves, all with the aim of getting your vote in 2.5 weeks' time on the 29th of November. Sarah, we're going to do these once a week, maybe more as circumstances demand. But I don't really think circumstances demand them at the moment because it's been a pretty dull campaign so far, hasn't it? What have been your opening impressions?
I suppose my opening impressions are flat as a pancake, fake formulated fights, and so far, nothing worth writing home about really for anyone, is there?
Have you not been taken by the slogans? I mean, I've just been blown away by the imagination and the brilliance and the inspirational nature of the slogans. We've got a new energy for Fine Gael. We've got forward together for Fianna Fáil. We've got change starts here for Sinn Féin. I mean, with it feels like that Ferrero Rocher advert. It's like, Mr. Ambassador, with all these slogans, you're really spoiling us. I mean, 5 years, Sarah. 5 years they've had to come up with something half decent, and a new energy is what they managed. Do you think it's capturing anyone's attention?
No. I think it makes you feel like they're as bored of us as we are of them, to be perfectly honest. But no, it is early doors, but the problem with the early doors is that when it's only a 3-week campaign, we're into the first week, it's, a third of it. It's quite a lot. And there's nothing going on except, we'll get to it now, but a fake fight about teachers, nonsense, complete nonsense. And then sort of silly announcements about things that nobody ever believes any of the parties are going to do so that the other guys can say they would or wouldn't do it differently. I mean, it's starting to feel a little bit like Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil are sitting down and orchestrating the entire campaign together, because none of it feels like it's really real. It's all kind of artificial.
You say they're orchestrating it, but if they're orchestrating it, they're doing a damn awful job. I mean, I was talking to somebody today who's not political at all, and I said, what did you note? What have you noticed from the election campaign? Like, you've been paying attention. You're a normal person. You absorb your news via osmosis. The radio, the RTE news, whatever. What have you noticed? He said, there was some row with Michael O'Leary, and the posters are up, and that was what he had noticed. So, how are you voting? He said, I'm leaning independent, and I was thinking, there speaks the nation, really, completely uninterested in the campaign. And I mean, did you see the video of Ivana Bacik standing in front of a camera denouncing Michael O'Leary as kind of like, I think she said it was beyond the realm of politically acceptable that he had said that maybe we shouldn't have as many teachers in politics as we do. I mean,
beyond the realm of that's beyond the realm of political. Yeah, it was. She said it was a. No, it was something like that it was a new low. It was that kind of tone. I thought, I mean, first of all, it was a joke. Second of all, I know lots of teachers, lots of people in my family are teachers. They don't care. And it seems like an orchestrated row, frankly, to distract from things that people actually care about. And Ivana is falling for it. I mean, I know people would be forgiven for not realising that Labour are actually in opposition and that they exist and that Ivana Bacik exists, but she is there and she does exist and she is the leader of the Labour Party, and the leader of the Labour Party should be coming out and talking about any number of gritty issues that are actually affecting people in their day-to-day lives, and instead she comes out with this po-faced nonsense about how teachers have been insulted, and I think it's pathetic and really a disservice to the public. I think Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil are doing a disservice to the public pretending like it's a real argument, but I think she's just as bad. She's supposed to be in opposition. Why isn't she calling them out on some of the serious mistakes they're making instead of this nonsense?
Have you met in real life? Because obviously you have a life, you go out and about and you have a professional life these days and you're moving in legal circles and you're meeting lots and lots of people. Have you met one single person who was offended by Michael O'Leary and what he said?
No.
No, me neither. And I talk to a fair few people, and I'm married, for the record, as everyone knows, to a teacher. Yeah. Now, maybe some of her friends are offended. Maybe some of her colleagues are offended. I don't know. I haven't encountered them. And if they are, I'm not speaking for you. But I know I've also met other teachers not offended. I haven't met anyone who said, "Oh my God, what Michael O'Leary said was awful." And yes, the entire political class and the media class are treating this like some kind of controversy, as if he had said, we should exterminate teachers, which isn't what he said
Yeah.
at all. He just said maybe we should have fewer of them in the Oireachtas and more qualified people to run the country. And my attitude to this is, if Michael O'Leary is telling you need what the qualities you need to run a country, which is essentially a large organisation, is, he's more qualified to do that than most people, since he runs a large multi-billion euro organisation. Maybe we should take his advice. No,
No.
not allowed.
But also he's entitled to his opinion. And the issue that I have with it comes back to the same old, which is that we don't have good opposition. Ivana Bacik, she could have come out and complained, if we're going to talk about education, she could have come out and complained about the €8 million that was spent on pockets for phones, but she doesn't, because Labour probably would have done the exact same thing. She could come out and talk about the problems within the education system for teachers having to, be afraid of misgendering people and what they're supposed to do about that issue, but she doesn't, because Labour wouldn't do any different. So she just comes out and talks about this shite, which is a disservice to the public, a joke, and nothing that's actually affecting teachers or their students, but it's a safe space for her. And it just tells you what I think and what I know, which is that Labour in government will be more of the same woke crap and no change. So I won't be voting for Labour.
Well, in fairness, I don't think you were ever in Labour's likely voter poll there.
No.
So
No.
there are 15% of the electorate out there who Labour are aiming for. Silly people, but they're there.
If you're watching the TV and that's the best Ivana Bacik as the leader of the Labour Party can do, that's her week one straight out of the traps general election press conference. She decides to waste her time on a joke that was made by Michael O'Leary at an event. Well, I think that's pathetic and a waste of everybody's time, and she should do better.
Well, they do have a policy, the Labour Party. I did come across this. They want to set up a state construction company. I think they're going to take about 6 billion quid out of the Apple tax money. So there's half of that spent. And they're going to use that as seed capital for a state construction agency, which will basically take, essentially nationalisation of the construction industry as a whole, make them all state employees, civil servants, presumably with state pensions, and get them to work. Because that's what we need, is Ivana Bacik directing the state construction agency on what they're to build and where. I suppose this is the kind of shite that'll go over well with somebody somewhere who thinks, well, if only Ivana Bacik could run it, we'd be building houses left, right, and centre. But I'm just thinking here what it would be like trying to get a plumber if they're all working for a state construction agency at the cost of 6 billion quid, because it's hard enough as it is. It's mind-bogglingly baffling to me that ideas as unserious and stupid as that can be floated in a general election campaign without, and this is where I criticise Fine Gael further, without any serious pushback, without anyone saying, hang on a second, this is an idiotic idea. Nobody should do this. It is much better if we have invest in actually training more plumbers and builders and get them building the way they used to back in the day without a state construction company. But that apparently is beyond the intellectual ability of the Fine Gael party, which rather criticised Michael O'Leary for making comments at their own event, which their own supporters applauded. And then did you hear Simon Harris saying, well, it was open to the public, so maybe they weren't their own supporters. I mean, what a Weasley thing to do to somebody who's come to support your own event. That's another factor here that annoys me. Sorry, I'm ranting. You say
but also just have the courage to just say it was a joke at an event and we're moving on because we've got other things to talk about. I think the Irish electorate deserve better than to spend an entire week of a 3-week campaign on this nonsense. I mean, that's why I think it's on purpose, because it's great. Let's waste a week on this. By the time the sleepy voters, the ones who haven't decided yet, wake up in week 3, they won't really have heard anything bad or good or either way, and they'll be kind of a bit confused and they'll probably just vote for the same old, same old. That's the strategy, John.
But Sarah, why? Because when I told you a few minutes ago, I was talking to the person who heard about Michael O'Leary, and he was still voting independent. And that person is a Fine Gael target voter. The person I'm thinking of, I'm not going to name them, obviously, but not on any kind of state supports, runs his own small business, classic Fine Gael target voter, and he's no interest in them. And I looked at the Sunday Business Post opinion poll that came out on Monday, and you were saying to me before we started recording that you thought a poll 3 weeks out wasn't worth much. I tend to agree, right? But that poll, for whatever it's worth, showed Fine Gael on just 22%, which is far from the idea of Simon Harris is going to sweep to victory in the election. Now, you've said previously you think Fine Gael are doing better than better than anyone else. I'm starting to doubt that, because I'm looking at the campaign they've run this week, And I'm not really seeing anything thus far that shows a massive wave of enthusiasm behind them. I just see a load of boring tripe and slogans falling off rostrums and
Oh,
fighting with your
that
own
was funny.
endorser.
That was funny. No, I mean, I'm inclined to agree with you that week one, I'm not feeling the energy behind Fine Gael that I would have expected. So you're right. Um, but I don't see an energy behind anybody yet. Like in the last general election, you could feel an energy behind Sinn Féin. It was obvious. You could feel it coming. I don't feel an energy behind anyone at the moment. Now, that's fine. It's only the first week. But at the same time, it's week one of 3. And thus far, I don't think the public have really engaged because there hasn't been that issue that's kind of captured them. And I definitely see this week there's a bit of posturing and there's a bit of, throwing things out in the stoop and seeing if the cat licks them up. If they say Fianna Fáil have come out with a policy about legalising drugs. I mean, spare me if I'm a bit reluctant to agree or to believe a party is claiming that they'll look at legalising drugs, a party that has spent their entire time in government banning flavoured vapes, banning a policy to make Ireland smoking free by 2035, sugar taxes, fat taxes, and you can't even buy a bottle of wine before 12:30. But soon under their watch, you'll be able to buy cannabis. So come on, guys, it's just unbelievably cynical, politicking 3 weeks out from a general election to throw that out when nobody believes you. You don't even believe it yourself, and it's a load of shite. And meanwhile, there are issues that people actually care about. I mean, I am quite disappointed that there doesn't seem to be, and we talked before about the election in America and how it might impact our election. But I mean, at the very least, I thought that it might give our political, classes a bit of the old defibrillator, and it doesn't seem to have done so because there's no energy behind this campaign so far. There's no interesting issue, and it's ripe, as I've said before, it's absolutely ripe for some kind of event and some kind of scandal. But if that doesn't happen and that doesn't arise, we're left with this kind of made up nonsense like Michael O'Leary or whatever it'll be next week. And we'll sort of sleepwalk into another general election where the people who aren't politically, engaged, who are too busy with their lives of having whatever they have going on to pay too much attention will, I fear, go in and just vote for the same old, and we'll be left with, this woke nonsense and no kind of clear thinking on immigration, etc., for the next 5 years. That's not what I want, but I'd fear that that's what might happen if this campaign doesn't take flight in some way.
I was thinking, first of all, you saw my tweet about my attempt to buy wine on Sunday morning, and I swear to God, Sarah, I'd never been more eager for a canvasser to knock on my door than I was that afternoon. Came home from Dublin, so I was at the Battle of Ideas, an event we hosted on Saturday in the RDS. Great event. If I saw you there, delighted to have met you, and thank you for coming.
Yeah,
but
it was great.
I was on the way home, dropped into Lidl in Nina on the way home, and picked up some bits and pieces so that I wouldn't starve on Monday and Tuesday, and my wife wouldn't starve. And I saw 2 nice bottles of wine. Tried to buy them, brought them up to the counter, and I forgot that it was Sunday, and you're not allowed to buy wine before 12:30 on Sunday because that would make you a bold boy. And then I came home and I saw Fianna Fáil's kind of like, we will decriminalise the possession of drugs. They didn't even specify cannabis, so there was a typo. So they accidentally. Do you remember years ago the government accidentally legalised drugs for about an afternoon?
Yeah.
Some piece of legislation. Do you remember that? No, Fianna Fáil almost did it again. They always legalised all drugs by accident in their manifesto. They had to clarify. But I was just thinking, oh my God. But you know what I think about the campaign so far, Sarah, is this. I think it's actually suffering from Sinn Féin's weakness. Because I think Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, their best case to the public, the best case they can make to the public is, look, we know we're not great. We know you're sort of sick of us, but you can't risk the other lot because they'll wreck the economy as well as all the shit we've wrecked. That's their best case. The problem is that there's no jeopardy of the other lot getting in. There's no one sitting at home going, oh, do you know who could be Taoiseach now after the election is Mary Lou McDonald? I wonder, is that a good idea? So there's no kind of urgency to kind of say we have to herd off this threat. There's no threat, therefore there's no urgency, there's no jeopardy. Whereas I was thinking back to an election you'll remember very well, which is the 2007 general election, where Bertie Ahern and Fianna Fáil were in a very similar kind of position. The public were sick of them. The public didn't really want any more Fianna Fáil. Bertie had been riddled with scandals. But then just in the last 2 weeks of the campaign, there was this kind of like, well, look, as bad as I am now, you can't be letting Pat Rappert be Minister for Finance. And that worked, and people roared back behind Fianna Fáil in the last week. We know what happened after that, but that's what
Well,
happened in that campaign.
that's
But there's no
loosely
sense
what
of
I've
anything
kind
like
of
that
been
here.
expecting. Well, that was what I was expecting to happen kind of with Fine Gael at the very least, maybe Fianna Fáil as well. I mean, it's kind of like, I think when you're talking, I think it reminds me of kind of like, an ex-boyfriend that you've broken up with that you really don't want to be with, but it's 3 o'clock in the morning and there's nobody around and he's trying to take you home and he's like, come on, there's nobody else to bring you home. Come on, let's go home. And you're like, oh, fine. Okay. Like
Celibacy is an option, Sarah.
I'm married. I'm just using it as an analogy, but it's kind of like, it's the come on campaign. Come on, look at the other guy. Like, come on. It's that's the campaign so far. You've got no other choices. Everyone else is crapper, and I think for like, and I don't mean to make it sound like I'm making light of it, because I really don't, because I think that there are a number of really big issues that matter a lot to people and really genuinely do affect them day to day, that they want to be, even at the very least, don't we deserve two smart people sitting on the end of a table arguing about the things that matter to us? Don't we at least even deserve that? Even just to hear the alternative view. And we don't get it. Like, I've always said on this podcast that one of the things I'm, like I obviously have, like, been in Fianna Fáil when I was younger, and I'm a kind of a political, I suppose, orphan now or whatever I am. But like, one of the things I'm the most passionate about ultimately comes down to this. I'm really, really passionate about the quality of the discourse, about the quality of the debate we're going to have. And if there's a general election and there's not going to be another chance for political parties to, lay out their case to the public for another, let's say it's 4 years. Let's say we get a general election, we get a government, and they last 4.5 years after this election in 3 weeks. This is the last chance, really, for these parties to lay out their stall. And this is what we're getting. Michael O'Leary and legalising drugs. Really?
Yeah. And I think that is going to be to the benefit, actually, of smaller candidates. At the moment, the way it's going, my radar could be completely off. And I'm not going to pretend that I've had masses of conversations with the public, or this is based on loads of data. This is just my instinct. Is that a campaign like this, which is kind of dead, where everyone is vaguely annoying, plays into the hands of the littler guy who's saying something interesting and decisive. So, like, if I was sitting in the shoes of a Gavin Pepper, for example, who's running in Fingal somewhere or other, Dublin North Central, same constituency Noel Rock is in, Dublin Northwest, that's what it's called. I would be happy with how things are going, because I would be saying, my message at least would be distinctive on the doorsteps. I thought it was interesting in the poll at the weekend, and again, 3 weeks out, could be margin of error stuff. I thought it was interesting that Aintree were at 5%, and I think they've had a decent start to the campaign. I also, on the other side of the political ledge altogether, I'm kind of worried that a lot of people will kind of go, at least the Soc Dems seem nice. I'm kind of worried that we're going to wake up with sort of like a 10 or 12% showing for the Soc Dems, just because people are like, I know who to vote for, and they're in favour of puppies, so we'll vote for them. I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those campaigns where when the issues.
And when you say puppies, do you mean men who identify as puppies, or do you mean actual puppies, John?
All kinds of puppies. There are rainbow parties here. They're inclusive of everybody. Furries, puppies,
It's a no from me.
Okay, well,
shocker.
We're not representative. We're not representative of the whole. And
I don't think.
Smart people listen to this podcast, but there are other people in the country as well who maybe aren't as gifted in manners of discernment, who might think, they're very nice. And that's
I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are.
And Holly Curran's having a baby, so that'd be nice. But yeah, my general point, without riffing on the Soc Dems too much, is that I think if you wanted an election that's geared towards fragmentation, where the electorate kind of go, I actually don't have to make a choice here. There's no real choice being presented to me. It's not as if there's urgency to keep Sinn Féin out because they're kind of struggling. I can vote for somebody who actually, at least is saying something interesting. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm saying that the field is set up the way you'd want it to be set up at the moment for something like that to happen. This time next week, we might be saying something entirely different. But right now, that's my impression.
Yeah, I think there'll be a few surprises. I think Dublin Central is one to watch. You've got multiple now candidates who are fishing from the same pool as Mary Lou. Um, I think that that'll be kind of interesting. Like there'll be interesting things that will happen, but I just think at the moment the broader picture is it's a safety campaign, run safely by the government, keeping exactly keeping on a track that suits them. Sinn Féin don't have the energy or the kind of momentum behind them at all to sort of capture the imagination or to even like lay out some of the terms of this election and say, well, we want to talk about this or we want to talk about that. They're just unbelievably weak at the moment. And so, the government is leading the campaign in a sense. They're not being chased by anybody. And so, yeah, I think you might be right that there'll be pockets of independents who'll get elected and a couple of surprises and maybe a couple of interesting, colourful individuals will get elected. But as it stands this week, I don't feel any. Now, that said, I did have a couple of texts this week from female friends who are often text me to ask me, what do you think about this or what do you think about that? Two different constituencies, both in Dublin, both women in their early 40s with kids, and both of them asked me for my opinion on their Fine Gael candidate.
Okay, so
I don't
you
know.
think do you think they're leaning? You got the impression they were leaning that way? Did you?
I just think if somebody is asking you about, if my local Fine Gael candidate is John McGurk, perish the thought, uh, and I'm
The
texting someone
commenters,
saying,
the commenters didn't like me last week. They really wouldn't like me if that was the case.
yeah. No, but if I'm texting someone saying, what's this guy John McGurk like? It obviously is indicative that you've captured my attention. Now, part of that might be due to the fact that Fine Gael, particularly in Dublin, I don't know what it's like where you are spending money hand over fist on their campaign. They're out postering, they're out bus advertising, they're out billboarding everyone else by a stretch. So it might just be down to that, but that does work. I mean, to a point, particularly in a campaign like this, if you're visible, massively visible, and people are completely disengaged from the election and they go in the last few days, your visibility will get you elected. Money,
Yeah.
basically.
Oh well, as previously mentioned, I did spend some time at the weekend in the heartlands of Dublin Bay South, and
Oh, you
Emma
did,
Blaine
sorry.
was everywhere. Emma Blaine was everywhere on the lampposts and on the bus steps, and she's obviously a Fine Gael candidate along with James Geoghegan there. No sign of our old friend Kate O'Connell, who's running an independent campaign for which she's raised tons of money, and yet didn't seem to have any posters that I saw. I thought that was interesting.
I saw
Maybe
one of
she's
her posters.
spending.
I saw one of her posters when I was at the Battle of Ideas in Ballsbridge, because I obviously don't live in that constituency, but I passed through it on the way to the Battle of Ideas, and I saw one of her posters, and I, wondered why people still haven't taken down their Halloween decorations.
I actually saw there's a guy running for the Social Democrats there in Dublin Bay South who's the spit of Ben Scallon. I think his name is Owen.
I know, I saw him.
But,
Yeah.
he's actually got a really good poster as well. In fairness, credit where it's due. I mean, he's for puppies and all that sort of stuff, but he's also got a good poster. Down here in Tipperary, Michael Lowry is beaming down from the lamppost at us like a man ready for his coronation. King of North Tipperary. He always doesn't even bother with a slogan on the poster these days. It's just a smiling Michael with a pink tie, beaming benignly at us with a number one beside his name, and he'll cruise home. And then Fine Gael are scrapping here with their candidate. I don't really think. I think they'll be doing very well to take a seat because Michael Lowry still owns their vote here, and Alan Kelly seems to be working really hard. So the as our Fianna Fáil, I don't see it going any other way than Lowry, Kelly, and a Fianna Fáiler is how I think it's going here. But across the nation, who knows? And let us know because Sarah, what about in leafy Malahide? Have there been? Have you had many people, making the pilgrimage to your doorstep to ask for your blessing?
I've had Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael so far.
Wow.
I was here for Fine Gael, and Keith, as I mentioned, it was a few weeks ago, and Keith was here for Fianna Fáil, so I couldn't comment on what he said to Fianna Fáil, but I've already said what I said to Fine Gael. But I'm looking forward. I mean, so we would never get a Sinn Féin or People Before Profit or any of that kind of candidates knocking on the door ever. God knows why.
I don't think they're allowed to. I don't think they're allowed to breathe the air in neighbourhoods like the one you live in, are they? It's like you have guard dogs at the gates of the estate that ward off socialists, that sort of stuff.
Don't be ridiculous, John. At this point, I would release the hounds on all political candidates, not just Sinn Féin. But no, so I would expect to probably see somebody from Labour, he's pretty active canvasser, Duncan Smith, and I would say maybe, I don't know, maybe a Stockton. I hope I meet them all. Like as I said before, like I'm not horrible. And I would say, I think Louise Riley, they've split our constituency, so it used to be a 5-seater, now it's two 3-seaters. I think Louise Riley from Sinn Féin is still in my half of the constituency. And I must say, because I would try to be fair, that I have met her a couple of times in different canvases and different things, and she's very nice, so I wouldn't be rude to her. I wouldn't vote for her, but I wouldn't be rude to her. But yeah, I mean, the canvassers are one thing, but the spend, particularly by Fine Gael, even here, is massive.
Yeah.
So.
And there was a very clear, and I think we discussed this on last week's podcast, but just in case anyone didn't hear it, like there was a very clear strategy to hold the campaign over a short 3-week period, and an awful lot of money was spent in the couple of 3 or 4 weeks before the campaign started, which of course doesn't count towards your general election spending limit. So they spent a metric ton of money on Facebook advertising, for example, before the campaign was called at all. So I mean, Fine Gael they're not throwing ideas at the campaign. They're not throwing policies. They're not throwing anything other than new energy and lots of money. I'm going to finish on this thought. Simon Harris. People who've watched this podcast for a long time, Sarah, will know that I have generally been very complimentary of his political skills. And, not necessarily endorsing him, but said, look, watch this guy. He's very, very capable. I think he has had a shit election so far. I think he has struggled to connect with people. I think he has struggled to articulate a vision for Fine Gael. I think their slogan is utterly awful. A new energy. I mean, that translates as more of the same but harder. That's what that means. We're going to do exactly what we're doing, but with a new energy behind it. Maybe people want something different. I think he's had a very poor campaign so far. He did a bit of jiving in County Monaghan. That was about the only kind of Simon Harris-esque thing I saw. And I just wonder, is it nerves? What is it? It's not for me to advise them, but I think Micheál Martin has probably had a better campaign so far, and all he's done is kind of like wander around the country pointing at things and saying Team Fianna Fáil a lot.
Yeah, I don't think I think you're probably right, but I don't think it's that visible or noticeable yet, because no one's having a particularly good one, and you can kind of hide in the weeds so far. It's all just very flat, Yeah, what I will say is that I have noticed that some of the social media stuff by Fianna Fáil is much improved on previous elections. So they've obviously gotten somebody in, or it wouldn't be hard. But no,
I'm just thinking. Sorry, go ahead, finish.
Their quality of the social media stuff, and by Fine Gael a little bit as well, has gone up. Do you not notice that?
Well, if it's gone up, I dread to see what it was before, because I saw this video the other day and it was literally Micheál Martin going, I'm Micheál Martin and I'm in, I don't know, Carrick Toohill. And then it was like a bunch of Fianna Fáil candidates going, I'm, Joe Vlogs and I'm in Athlone and I'm Jennifer Moraine O'Connor and I'm in Kilkenny. And then at the end they go, and I'm on Team Fianna Fáil. And I just, like, what was the point of that video? It was just like, I'm a person standing in a place and I'm in Fianna Fáil. I mean, tell me something. Give me a reason to vote for you other than like, I am a person in a place and I'm from Fianna Fáil. Maybe I'm missing it. Maybe they think the voters really are that dumb. But to me, it was just like, give me one reason to vote for your party. I didn't see it. Well, maybe they've got other videos that articulate policies.
I didn't see that one. Right, I'm going to have to go off and watch more now just to see if I stand over the statement I just made. Damn.
Who knows?
But it's an election campaign. A lot done, more to do, as they say in good slogan land. But it's early doors. It's very flat. But what it needs, John, is a good scandal or a good proper row, not a fakey made up one about teachers and Michael O'Leary.
Yeah, it was hard to see where that's going to come from. I mean, that's not to say, obviously all scandals are kind of hard to see where they come from until they arrive, but it's just kind of hard to see where it'll come from, because on the issues, I can't find the cigarette paper really separating the parties on the main issues. They all want to spend more of our money on stuff for us. That's it, Fianna Fáil wants to give us €350 pension. Fine Gael wants to cut that a little bit. The Labour Party wants to nationalise builders. The Social Democrats want to nationalise kittens. I don't know, whatever it is. Like it's all the same stuff. It's all we're all going to spend a bit more money now on stuff, and you're all going to be happier at the end of it. But there's no vision thing. There's no vision thing at all in the campaign. And yeah, I think people are tuning it out. I think we're on course for a low turnout general election. That's what I think.
So far, yeah. But
all right, well,
still time.
Go ahead. Well, we'll be back at the end of this week with our usual longer podcast where we round up other stuff as well as the general election. But we're going to keep doing this during the campaign and see if it improves any bit. Probably won't, but that's the way it's going. But we'll be here with you anyway to talk you through it. We're also working on our count day coverage for when that happens, so we can sit at the RDS and talk you through the results, interesting, dull, boring, or fascinating as they may be. And of course, you can stay tuned to gript.ie for all the latest news and videos from Ben as he tries to prod our politicians into life by answering some interesting questions. God help him, he does his best, but it's not working very well so far. All right, Sarah, thanks a million for joining me. Listeners and viewers, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back at the end of the week, but until now, that was sort of the first few days of the week that really was. Take care.